Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to another Big Buck Breakdown from the Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? It's a chilly day today, KC. And, man, you and I, we grew up on Lake Fork, right?
That's correct.
In East Texas. That's like
correct.
Our home lake where we learned to fish, right?
Yeah.
Duck hunt. Did you do any duck hunting on Lake Fork?
I did.
Okay. So, but mainly I'm talking about the fish right now, okay?
Okay.
Lake Fork is one of the bass capitals of the world. Talking largemouth bass.
Arguably the
Bass
capital
best
of the world.
bass capital of the world, yeah. At one point, or at several points, especially during the 90s and early 2000s, we were probably the most visited lake in the entire world for bass fishing purposes,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason is because of the output of double-digit 10-plus pound bass, right,
Mm-hmm.
per, I guess, day of in a year.
You know this is a hunting podcast, right?
It's not just the 10-pounders, though. It's it was the potential to break the world record, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so our biologists at Texas Parks and Wildlife, they set out to make Lake Fork break the world record.
Uh-huh.
That was kind of their goal, right?
Uh-huh.
And Lake Fork had a lot of records in the top 50 for the state, including the state record. But we never broke the lake record. But we had great success, right?
Uh-huh.
Lake Fork has always had what has been famously called a slot.
Uh-huh. Oh.
You can keep fish that are under, well, now it's under 16 inches or over 24 inches, but nothing in between.
You are good, dude.
Okay, so the biologists that put that into work have to think that is a big reason that Lake Fork had such big bass, right? That has to be a big part of
Supposedly.
it. To probably because it's still in working order today.
Uh-huh.
So, did the guys who work with the furred species in the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department go, I see what those guys in the aquatics departments are doing, and I think we should try that with white-tailed deer.
They might have.
You think
I think they might have.
they decided to put a slot on us?
Did we
here?
get slotted today?
I think we got slotted today,
Man.
but just barely.
Just barely. Like by 1 inch.
Yeah.
Which is how you get slotted with fish a lot of times, too.
That's absolutely the
I know I've been in
case.
some tournaments when I'm trying to catch that 2-pound fish, they give out extra money for that. And it's just barely too long all the time.
Some guys that maybe don't have a high ethical standard would take some fingernail clippers and clip the end of that tail.
You know, I saw a redfish that somebody did that to in a tournament, and it looked real bad. Like, I don't know how they thought they were going to. It looked like it had a largemouth tail, like, around it, and it was like, what are you doing?
Dude, it's a huge offense these days.
Yeah,
they've gotten really strict on that kind of stuff. Like, not just within the tournament, but actual laws. You know, I mean, because it's you're dealing with lots of money in sometimes in those tournaments.
I had kind of the other direction, but I had a friend who we used to go sand bass fishing, and for a long time on one of the local lakes, you'd catch a bunch of sand bass that were barely under, and so he would just take them and step on them, and then they would grow the extra quarter inch and then put them in the cooler, which is probably not legal, okay? So I'm not going to name who he was, but I was of the age of not really being able to say anything to him or knowing any difference at that point in time. But I remember it happening, and looking back, I'm like, whoa! But anyways, so there's a whitetail slot.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm starting to realize.
I think you're right, and I think it does work.
It's just a thing that they put on us here in East Texas because of the success of the East Texas black bass is what I would consider.
Yeah, maybe so.
I mean,
well, they also have those restrictions like further down, but I think Falcon and Amstead have some slots too, so it makes sense. You know? It's just those biologists are just.
I wonder. Surely those came after the Lake Fork.
Probably
success.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know if that for sure. I mean, somebody have to fact check me on that, but fact check me too because I've been eating out all day.
Man, ice cream.
Come on. Woo. So, before we get to talking a little bit more about this slot deer, I want to introduce our guest today, Jake Hofer from Sitka Gear. You have probably heard of him or heard from him if you listen to this podcast because he did a podcast with us, an interview on how to run trail cameras pretty much more effectively, I guess.
Trail camera tactics and whatnot. I don't remember what number that is, but go search for Jake Hofer from Exodus Trail Cameras. You can listen to that one. And Jake is kind of a perennial big buck killer.
Yeah.
Dude kills a lot of big deer. And what's cool about Jake is he's like, haha, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing. And you're like, yes, you do. You kill giants, dude.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's funny that you say that because you also we laughed at him for saying haha about a big giant deer that got shot that he was hunting.
For real. This dude was hunting like a world-class animal, and he got shot by his neighbor, and he's like, haha, oh well. I'm like, dude, I would still be crying.
That's all of you said. You said, what? Ha-ha? There ain't no ha-ha at the end of that.
Yeah, but that just goes to show you kind of how Jake is, man.
Yeah,
Doesn't take it too serious. We sing a little song. How does our song go?
Which one?
I'm a joker. I'm Jake Hofer.
Yeah. Dude, if y'all could just ride around with us for a little while. Like, I'm pretty sure you talked about us possibly coming out with an album.
We just might cut an album one of these days.
It's going to be 42 songs, and it's going to be about 27 minutes long.
Yeah.
Because we've got a bunch of 15-second songs.
That's right. All the coyotes in Kansas.
That's one of them.
Live in this county.
That's one of them. Yeah, it's one of our. We need to do like one of those infomercials. You know, it shows all the hits or whatever, and has a little part of them singing.
Yeah. Anyways, though, we're gonna have Jake Hofer on. He killed a really big buck up in Illinois.
Yeah,
because he hunts two states, and you got to kind of keep up with which one is which.
Yeah.
But really cool story. Killed it on a place that a lot of people I think would overlook. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Real quick, we haven't really told the details. What's the deal with your slot deer today?
Well, I got slotted kind of twice. We had a really good public land hunt today. Like, I wish they were all this good. Mm-hmm. In Texas at least, and saw 3 bucks from the stand, none of which were legal. 2 of which okay, so it went.
The first one wasn't legal?
The first one wasn't legal. He was a forky, and I probably didn't have a shot at him. The second one wasn't legal. He was a 3-year-old 8. Definitely didn't have a shot at him. Couldn't turn him. Grunted at him. He was following a doe. And then this evening, Tyler and I went back in. And dude, we orchestrated and plotted and schemed over this for probably close to an hour on what to do with this wind direction. Finally decided to sit on this finger of timber and went in there and found some trails that intersected this finger of timber, set up on those trails, and sat there all evening long and didn't see a deer until very last light.
Expectations were fulfilled.
That's right. One Bucky decided to take the trail in front of me. I spotted him on the tree line. He cut in, and I saw that he hit the trail and was going to come down the trail, and then the excitement hits, right? Well, it's actually dark enough to where, like, at 100 yards, you really can't tell what he is. You can just see antlers. So he comes in, and I've got my bow in the hand. Tyler's filming over my shoulder, and we're trying to evaluate. We get to the point where we can tell he's not like a big buck. He might be a very small buck. And
what did you say? There was something you said when he was at like 30 coming in or whatever. You said something that cracked me up. I was like, how did you come up with that in this moment right now?
I don't know.
It's like, it was questionably legal or something. You just like made a statement
of questionable legality, I think.
Yes, of questionable legality. Yes. I was like, what is this dude doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, my heart's beating so fast, I can't think of nothing.
Well, I tell people all the time I make jokes to get over intense situations, and that probably was one of those. But I thought we had it. I thought he was a 3-point. Or a 12-point, depending on if you're, a social media master. But anyways, at like 9 yards, he got to 9 yards, and I could finally see that he had about a 1-inch little.
There was a moment
wart.
when he like showed it off, and we were both like,
Yeah. Nope. I was like, I didn't draw because I wanted to make sure that I could. Like, I didn't want to draw on him.
He was seeing pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't want to draw on him and he not be legal.
Oh.
Because, like, I was already pretty itchy at that point, and, like, I didn't want to just get in the zone and just wake up and not know what happens. I know. Yeah. But we were on a place where, like, we had decided, like, man, it's time to shoot a deer. You know, I kind of haven't shot anything since October, and I know you need some meat, and I can use it too, and... You know, it's December, I want to hunt. I want to kill some deer. So we were going to shoot any illegal buck, and it's gotten to the point where it feels like a victory to do that no matter what it is on Texas public, to tell you the truth of the matter. But, we're still going to be out chasing mature bucks, but it's also fun to just shoot stuff sometimes, too.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at.
I loosed an arrow last week at a coyote because I haven't shot yet. So, yeah, I understand, man. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we had a, and I kind of like sometimes I wish we'd go out to a public land property and it just be easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like we've had some hunts this year that kind of seemed that way. We may not have finished them or whatever, but like you set up in a spot that's pretty obvious and the deer come to you. Mm-hmm. But I kind of like when we sit there and scheme and it takes us a lot of like brain power and thought and like we get an idea and then we're like, oh, hold on. We've walked like 5 steps and we're like, oh, what about this? And then we're like, oh, yeah, let's just do that and go back over there. You're like, and it took us forever, but I kind of like when we do that and then all of a sudden like the game plan comes together to a T. Mm-hmm. And we've had that happen a few times recently. Yeah. Like, on the permission property that we were hunting last week, big, canyon land type stuff that we had a bad wind for. We thought about that forever, and we ended up sitting in the perfect spot where we didn't get winded from either direction those deer were coming from.
Yeah. The night before is a similar kind of thing where we drove around to a bunch of properties trying to just make it work on the wind, and we never could, and finally decided to go over there, kind of almost last minute, walked in and had some really good encounters too. So, it's...
it makes me feel like that I'm doing the right thing overall, and that makes me feel like that I'm going to shoot a deer here pretty soon. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you are, dude.
I hope so.
And I also think that after the trail camera pulls we had today, we feel a lot better about life.
Yeah, we do.
We also feel like we should have been other places at certain times of the year that we weren't hunting, but that's neither here nor there. There are some very large mature bucks.
Yeah.
Out and about on Texas public land.
Yeah, there are. And one is very big.
Oh.
One is. I mean, there's several that are very big, but one of them is a little bit kingly.
Yeah. Well, watch the old PLC from this trip, and you might get a glimpse at some of those.
That's right.
Might not. I don't know if we want to show everybody how cool our deer are.
We might show a few, but
okay.
Yeah, we'll show the slots.
Yeah,
we'll show
slots.
the slots. All right, well, let's get Jake on the phone. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right, so on the phone now we have Jake Hofer from Exodus Trail Cameras. What's been going on, dude?
Hey, not much. Been trying to get the most out of November and chasing these whitetail deer nonstop.
That's a hard thing to do sometimes. Well, chasing them is not hard. Getting really close to them and getting one on the ground is the hard part most of the time.
Yeah, that's no kidding.
But you have done it, dude. You already have made it happen with a big stud. This is a Illinois buck, is that right?
Yeah, Central Illinois. In an undisclosed county.
No, hey, we ain't telling nobody nothing.
Central's pretty specific, man. Golly.
Right. Yeah, I connected the dots on what I'm 99% sure is 4.5. Beautiful 10-point on a very, very small parcel of ground.
Yeah,
that's cool, man. So this is a permission property for you?
Yes, it is. It's a permission property, and it's probably a piece that's been overlooked for a very long time, and I was fortunate enough to get access to it, and it's a blast to hunt. There's a ton of deer in the area, and that late October to early November, the property is usually on fire, and there's a lot of big bucks running through there.
That's awesome, dude. So tell us the story and tell us why that property's on fire that time of year.
Well, I wish I could tell you exactly why, but it's a ditch that connects to on each side. There's big pieces of timber, and then all along these little ditches, there's a big pond with a ton of cover, and there's more food than what the deer know what to do with, and so it holds a ton of does in this area, in this square mile. And I've hunted it this is the third year I've hunted it, and the first year I've shot off of it, but I've chased some really solid deer on this particular piece, and there's always in one of the ditches, it's about 10 acres, so there's a couple ditches I can hunt. In one ditch, there's usually a really solid 3.5-year-old always bedded in there. I thought last year there was a 3.5-year-old that I said, I'm going to shoot that deer early October. That particular buck, he's 4.5 now. I call him the ranch buck, and he has not bedded in that ditch anymore, and he hung out with a 9-pointer last year. That particular buck has taken over his bed from what I assume, and he was in there a whole bunch early October. I said, well, I'm not going to try to shoot him. So then as October rolls out, there's more bucks that always filter in. And now with it being the third year I've hunted it, I'm starting to kind of put two and two together of, oh, this buck shows up about now, this buck shows up about now, and comparing those dates. And there was one particular buck that I love to connect with this season still, real giant 8-pointer. He showed up in the daylight and walked around October 24th and October 25th.
Oh, my goodness.
So, and last year I only got a handful of videos of him. This year I got velvet videos of him. But I also added some more cameras on this particular piece. But long story short, I figured out that he's probably spending more time in there than what I thought last year. And he showed up the 21st this year, so about 4 days earlier, in daylight, shootable. And I was like, oh man, like, did he already run around and like that was it? And I missed the 2-day window because I went and checked it later. And sure enough, I was hunting a piece of public actually that evening because I was kind of tiptoeing around like, man, I really don't want to pressure this particular piece because I think I overhunted it last year. You know, I want to try to get in there and be effective and clean and not spend a ton of time in there. And sure enough, so he was daylight October 25th last year. He was working a scrape an hour before dark in the freaking middle of the field. October 25th again this year. So he's still alive from my knowledge.
Golly.
So taking into that consideration of, okay, this buck was almost to the exact date walking around in the daylight. There was a real solid 10-pointer last year that cruised through there early November. And he was in daylight. He was chasing does, running wild. And then I went and checked that camera after I was slightly heartbroken. I could have connected with that buck. And to add insult to injury, when he was working that scrape, I hung a stand 15 yards from there, and it would have been a chip shot. But anyways, I was a little heartbroken about that. And sure enough, that 10-pointer showed up again this year, and he was quite a bit bigger, added quite a bit of inches. And to be completely honest, I don't think I connected the dots of, oh, that was the buck from last year. That was a buck that fit the description that I'd like to shoot at that very moment.
Yeah.
And so I went in there, and then there was another beautiful 8-pointer, not as big as the other one. He came in right at dark, a little after shooting light, so I couldn't get a shot even if I wanted to. And I had another encounter with the 3.5-year-old that was living in that ditch. I passed him twice later that week. I was like, I'm seeing really solid bucks. I'm not getting busted. I'm just going to keep hunting here. All the deer seem super relaxed. And so I'm sitting here until I shoot a big buck. It was kind of my thought process.
Right.
And they just picked the corn right next to it. I was like, this is a perfect storm. And sure enough, I spotted that 10-pointer out in the field real early in the evening, actually, like 3:30. I texted my dad. He was hunting a different farm, and I said, I think that buck's out in the field. Like, it's 3:30. I have a pretty good chance I'm going to get a shot at him. He was about 180 yards feeding in the field with a smaller buck and some does. And eventually I lost track of him. The little buck ran off with the does, and then it looked like he ran in the opposite direction as well. I was like, well, it's still plenty early. There's 4 bucks on this farm that I'd love to shoot. So
Not bad.
I feel really good about this. And sure enough, he came back out in the field, and then some yearlings came out from another direction to the east and was running west to where the buck was. And I said, okay, I have a scrape line. I have yearlings in between me, and then I have the big buck out in the field. So I was like, things are looking pretty solid. I have a perfect wind. And then I lost track of them again. And then I was looking, and I'm hunting a very thick ditch right on an alfalfa field. And then adjacent to that is a winter wheat field. They've been feeding in that a ton. And sure enough, he came up, hit the first scrape, came up and hit the second scrape where that giant 8-pointer hit it about a week before. And he came in and right in the ditch, and about 10-yard shot smoked him. Ooh. And he ran off in the field. And I was pretty darn pumped, to be completely honest.
Yeah, imagine, man.
Dude. I wish. Is there any tip that you have on finding particular farms that have a shooter target buck per every 2.5 acres?
I don't, dude. It doesn't make sense. So, and to add to that too, though, is I'm very certain that he's living on the neighbors, because I didn't get any velvet pictures of him this year or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he showed up again that early November time frame, and so I feel better about that, to be completely honest, because I'm probably not going to try to shoot another buck off that farm this year. So
yeah,
hopefully those dudes get even bigger next year. So it was probably the most satisfying thing was capitalizing on the annual rut data with trail cameras. I know initially when people hear that, they might think it's a little hokey, but on this very controlled environment of a small parcel, and it funnels the deer a little better than most farms, I'm able to kind of confirm that, yeah, bucks are showing up, that don't live there on a pretty regular basis from a calendar year.
That's cool, man.
That's an awesome thing to tap into too, dude, because we do, quite a bit of permission kind of stuff too, and you're just hunting these little places that you're really trying to key in on that kind of stuff where, the annual pattern thing is very interesting to us. But what gave you the initial confidence to, try out a place that small? Was it just that you sighted a buck, or you kind of were doing some map scouting and found this little overlooked spot, or how did that come about?
It was actually through a friend, and they're like, "Do you want to hunt this?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And so I mean, obviously, I say yes to no matter, it could be anything, and I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And I went and checked it out, and it was actually the week before shotgun season 3 years ago, and I walked in there, and it was pretty tore up. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." Yeah. and so it's just a real special place, because I do hunt other small parcels, and they all have their own weird little window of when I think you could probably shoot a big buck. Mm-hmm. But this one does have a pretty wide window, and it has so much cover that it does hold 2 solid bucks typically in the general vicinity. And just the way the topography rolls out, no one in the road can see where these deer are or see what these deer are. So I think that plays a big role. So they feel very comfortable running around in daylight.
Yeah.
So that plays a huge role in it, I think, as well.
That's definitely something we've seen in kind of that more open stuff, you always traditionally think about how trees and whitetail go hand in hand, but cover's cover, right? If it's 4 foot tall grass or if it's 30 foot oak trees, it doesn't really matter as long as they feel secure. And I think that there's something to be learned right there when you talk about visual seclusion from a road. That's huge on that part. What about that corn? That's something I'm really trying to wrap my head around, is how deer use standing and cut corn. So you said like the corn had been harvested the day before. Was that a food attractant, or was that a did away with the bedding that they were using kind of thing?
I think it was a combination of the two, honestly. Just because this particular, so there's 2 ditches. The ditch I was hunting this particular time, it was between the alfalfa field, and then on the west side was the corn, and then to the north was winter wheat, and then a very, very thick ditch with the scrape line going along the alfalfa field. But I think with all the cover along that cornfield, they were bedded so close into there. And then when they went and cut it, they had all the additional food. And I talked to the farmer the evening I shot it, and he said, joking around, I lost, 50 bushel an acre thanks to all those deer. So he said, I could see where they could lay down and, spend their whole summer there. So I think a lot of people say that they don't necessarily believe that big bucks bed in corn, but I think they probably bed near it because it's a free meal and it does provide some cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. So this property, you're saying you're not going to hunt it again or shoot another deer off of it, I guess. And the 8-point that you're talking about is the one that I know about. Is that correct?
Yeah. He's really solid.
And you're not going to go after that buck?
If I get the chance to do it, absolutely. I just don't want to rustle any feathers. It's a little. I feel like it's a little different with a small parcel. I don't want them to think oh, he's in there shooting deer left and right. So I'm trying to respect the landowner as much as possible.
Hey, you're saving 50 bushel an acre, man. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. But unfortunately, everyone doesn't look at it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of treading it lightly, and I'm more than thankful to be able to hunt that because it's by far my favorite piece. Now, I will be back in there. I haven't even checked my cameras since I shot the deer on the November 3rd. And I know I'm going to be disappointed when I go back in there. And he's there multiple days in a row. So
yeah. Man, that's crazy. I have a friend that has a permission property that's really, really good. And he passes deer that pretty much nobody around would pass, because kind of the same thing that you're talking about. It's kind of like, it's a property that could hold a really, really big deer, and does sometimes, but in a lot of them, and it doesn't, usually they don't even reach what they want to from a QDM standpoint as far as harvest goes. But he's like, well, if I shoot a real solid or big deer every year, I don't know, how that's going to affect my permission here, So he's like, I really just want to kind of hold out for the giant deer, just the big one, So I understand that, just being close to a friend that has that same situation. So it's a fine line. It feels like that no matter if you're on a permission basis or if you're actually paying for properties as a lease. I've seen in the past where it's just, if you're hunting on private land, you're going to get kicked off at some point. It seems like, it doesn't matter what you do and how much respect you have for them. It could just change hands, somebody sell it. So at some point it's like you just always seem to lose that permission somehow.
Yeah. So take those as words of encouragement.
So shoot this 8-point as quickly as you can.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, like I said, there's another deer that I called the ranch buck, but it's been really fun to see him I was at full draw on him last year at 3.5. And I didn't get a clean shot at him. And I'm really glad I didn't get a chance to shoot at him, because he probably added 10 to 15 inches easy.
Nice.
From 3.5 to 4.5. So I'm really hoping he makes it next year. And I got enough data now on that dude.
Yeah.
He's in trouble. He's in trouble now that he's changed. His pattern did change from 3.5 to 4.5, but I think he's definitely in trouble if he makes it one more year.
There you go. That's cool. What's your method of nomenclature for these deer? How are you coming up with these names?
Honestly, I really don't name a bunch of bucks, but for whatever reason, this guy, there's only so many deer on that property, and then I get a hard time when I'm talking about bucks to to my friends or family, like, I don't understand which buck you're talking about. So unfortunately, they're usually really generic.
Yeah,
Like that big buck on this parcel, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's the hardest thing for me is like like you could on a particular property. Me and KC were kept talking about this 10 point that we were hunting on this property this past week because he was the only 10 point on the property. But like when it only has 8. It's like there's a lot of 8 points out there, and it's kind of we can't just say that one big 8 point because there's actually 3 of those on this property. So
exactly, which is a great problem.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding, man. Well, so I guess you're going to be hunting on different properties. Do you have any exciting prospects as far as the rest of the season goes? Yeah,
I have. So going into the season, I wanted to shoot. In Illinois, you can shoot 2 bucks. The first deer I wanted to shoot was 4.5 and 140 plus, and this buck met that description. I'm sending his teeth in though, just to be 100% sure, more out of curiosity. And then my second goal, as far as shooting another buck, I want it to be 158 plus. I know it's very specific, very specific measurement, but I wanted I shot 2 really nice bucks last year in Illinois, and I was done November 10th. And
Brag.
I felt like I missed a big part of the season. And so far after shooting that buck, I've been pretty aggressive, and I'm honestly just. You hear coaches say like you're a student of the game. Yeah, I'm trying to be a student of the game and learning as much as possible, and kind of chasing that next level of whitetail. And I'm very thankful that I have multiple that fit that goal. And it's not going to be easy to kill them, but it's going to be a heck of a time to do it, and I'm going to enjoy every day of it.
Yeah,
dude.
Man, that's cool. I like that for sure.
It's awesome, and it's cool that you have like the liberty of 2 tags to where you can kind of scratch both itches in that respect. You can go ahead and like hunt hard in the rut and get your buck, but then also like have that wherewithal to be able to step back and be like, okay, now it's time to really get in there and learn about these deer and see if I can find a toad daddy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And I'm fortunate enough to hunt one particular piece that I've never hunted before, and it feels like the big woods, except it's not a big section. I'm used to hunting these ditches. I'm used to hunting these small parcels or properties that have a ton of diversification and topography. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of just a big section of woods with steep ravines. And I'll be completely honest. There's some really nice deer in there, and I've struggled to see them on the hoof or really get on them in general. So I'm kind of treating that as expanding my skill sets, if you will.
Yeah, that's cool.
Man, I'll tell you, if you really want to extend your season, you should come hunt public in Texas. Because you don't learn a lot because you don't see deer every time, but you do have a hard time getting it done most of the season. Yeah, you
can definitely rack up some moments in the stand. Your hours would go up for sure.
Yeah,
I got so darn cold this weekend. That doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, it's not, man. We have 70, 80 degree days in December, so it's not always, but yeah, we'll have them. So it's good weather all the way up to January. Usually, there's a couple of rough weeks, and that's about it. So you should come on down if you need to extend your season, man.
I might take you up on that. Bust out the early season gear.
There you go.
Exactly.
Sounds nice.
Exactly. Well, cool, man. Congratulations on that buck, man. It's just a big, heavy toad, and I enjoyed seeing the pictures of it, man. I'm excited for you and excited for the rest of the season. So good luck the rest of this fall, Jake.
I appreciate it, and you guys too. I know you guys are hitting it hard.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon, man.
Sounds good.
All right.
I like smiley people. I've told you that before, man. Smiley people are good people, and Jake's that way.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm glad he killed a big old buck, man, because he deserves it.
Dadgummit, dude. We've got some, smiley friends that be big buck killers, too.
I know it, man. I know it.
Sam Hogan.
Eric Barber.
Dude.
Smileys.
All of them.
Hey, listen, people. If you want to kill a big buck, smile more.
Maybe that's it.
That's it.
Maybe that's it, dude.
Yeah.
I've been smiling quite a bit, but I guess not enough. I don't know.
I guess not enough, man. I don't know. I guess you got to smile in your sleep and
or maybe
everything.
just my big buck is just going to come a little bit later in the season than others.
Maybe so, dude.
Yeah. Well, anyway, remember that if you follow us on Instagram, that you're getting close to another chance at one of those OnX annual premium memberships.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, we're giving away 4, and whatever is not claimed, we will give away the remainder of the unclaimed on the next podcast you hear from us, which is Thursday. Best we can tell.
Maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. You just never know.
This time
of year, man, it gets kind of crazy. And right now, if you haven't noticed, we've done most of our podcasting from the vehicle because we always driving to hunt.
Yeah.
And that should make you feel good, not bad.
Yeah.
You know, like, listen to some dudes who like to hunt.
Yeah.
Because you like to hunt too, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, follow us on Instagram. Make sure you're doing that. Also, the Rut-Cation series has finally come to an end.
Oh, I'm sad.
Yeah, that was a cool series. Video 6 is just posted, which is our final day. And there's a couple of pretty cool clips of some big deer on there.
There he is.
We didn't get the biggest one on there. He was coming right at us.
We were swapping a battery.
Yeah, so... that was cool, but
tell you the truth, the not getting him on film was the least of my heartbreak at that moment. I promise
that's
you.
true. Because if he'd have kept coming, we'd have got him on film.
Oh, we'd have got him a lot on film.
Yep.
We'd have just got him, I think.
We just got him all around. Day 5 was really intense. So if you haven't watched that series, go through and watch from day 1 all the way through 6, and you'll kind of get the story. It's pretty cool, man. There's some really good days. And we called in some bucks. We had several shooters that we chased around. It was a lot of fun.
Leave us a comment on day 5 in particular, and let me know what you think about that buck that we rattled in.
Yeah, and what KC could have done differently, and what I could have done differently.
The following events. Just let us know what you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. That means, though, that next up are some Texas PLC type stuff.
I'm excited about those.
Public land vids from Texas. We've got a few of those still on the hard drive, ready to be edited up, which one of those should go live tomorrow, I guess. Depends on when this thing's posted, but tomorrow. And we'll start with that, and then we'll get back into we went back to Kansas, last week or whatever, and had some pretty good hunts, so we'll get back into that soon. So best way to keep up with all that's going on YouTube, rather than listen to it right here and try to remember all that I say, is just go subscribe on YouTube, and it'll notify you whenever we put up a cool new video. So do that. And anything else we got to think about here?
That's all I got, man. Y'all get out there and hunt because there's still plenty of deer season left.
Yeah, and it was cold today, man.
It was a good day.
It was a good day for sure. So anyway, hope you guys are getting out in it. I hope you haven't shut it down and you're in Christmas mode at this point, because there is, like Casey said, a lot of good hunting to be had. So anyway, get out there. God bless you guys. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.